I'd been working in higher ed for over 20 years. The place I was working was just one of the most toxic environments I've ever been in. I wanted to do something different than I had been working. And so I logged into WordPress and I started, putting the content in and can do websites too. And by the end of the week, I had enough business that I just started up my own freelancing. And so I applied to speak at a WordCamp. And at the end of that talk, I had people lined up to talk to me. And I realized that we all have something to share. Mark Westgard is the founder and developer behind WS Form. He is one of my WordPress besties, and what he has been able to do is phenomenal. I have 20 years in higher education. I'm about to give a talk at a tech conference. Who the hell do I think I am? Even if they're people I don't know, I can give them a word of positivity. When Dorothy opens the door and she walks out of the sepia world into the Technicolor world, right? That's what WordPress felt like to me.
Welcome to Cosmos by WPLift, where we explore the people, the projects, and ideas shaping the WordPress universe. This podcast is sponsored by our friends at E2M, the #1 reliable, strategic, and AI-first white label partner for digital agencies. So today, we are joined by my friend, and dare I say everyone's friend, Michelle Frechette, the executive director of Poststatus. Michelle, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to talk to you. It's been a little while.
Yeah. And I think we last saw each other at WordCamp US in September.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
A lot has changed since then.
For both of us.
Are now, remind me, when did you become the ED of Poststatus?
That was about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
That I was already working at Poststatus and kind of running things behind the scenes. About a year and a half ago, they gave me the official title, which let me, be a little bit more the public figurehead of what's happening at Poststatus. If you don't like what's happening, it wasn't my decision. But if you love it, it was all me.
Fantastic. So as I mentioned, Michelle and I are friends. And so this is an opportunity in part for us to catch up and hear about how I'm so psyched to hear about how things have been going for you over the past several months. And just to kick things off, for those who might not know, could you share a bit about your journey in the WordPress community and how it led you to your current role?
Absolutely. So it all started with a nonprofit that my best friend and I started back in 2011. I had blogged on WordPress before for the local newspaper, but not even knowing it was WordPress, if that makes any sense. This is where you log in, this is where you put your stuff. And so and it was such an early version that it didn't even look like the WordPress that I started using in 2011. But her husband built us a website. And when we started to send him the content, he's like, hold on, ladies, here's your login, figure it out. And so I logged into WordPress and I started, putting the content in. And you know how at Christmas time, you put the Christmas tree, if you celebrate Christmas, you put the Christmas tree up in the front window, then you walk outside to see how it looked. Then you go back in, you adjust a few things, then you walk outside to see how it looked. That's kind of what I was doing with the website, because I would publish things and then I open another tab and go, what does it look like? What does it look like? Right. And go back and forth between the dashboard and the public facing site. And it felt, I've said this before, it felt a little bit like when Dorothy opens the door and she walks out of the sepia world into the Technicolor world, right? That's what WordPress felt like to me. And so we got that website up and running. We had that nonprofit for about 5 years, and I wanted to do something different than I had been working. I'd been working in higher ed for over 20 years. The place I was working was just one of the most toxic environments I've ever been in. And I just put it on Facebook. I'm leaving my current role. If anybody needs any marketing help, because I had an MBA in marketing, let me know. I can do websites too. And by the end of the week, I had enough business that I just started up my own freelancing. And so that's kind of where it started. And then I heard about these things called WordCamps and meetups, and I started attending. And it's like, I say you get bit by the bug, right? It's like the community, the software is awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's like, come for the software, stay for the community, because it's the people of WordPress that really just sucked me right in and was like, we want to be your friend. We're everybody's friend and everybody here gets along. And I know that's not all true, right? No community is without its troublemakers, let's say, right? So there's always been people who I'm not their cup of tea, and I'm perfectly fine with that, because maybe I'm a troublemaker sometimes too. I don't know. But the idea of the community and being able to represent who you are and what you do. And so I applied to speak at a WordCamp, and I got on the stage thinking, I have 20 years in higher education. I'm about to give a talk at a tech conference. Who the hell do I think I am? And I thought I didn't really have, I don't want to say it was imposter syndrome and that like I was nervous, but I seriously wondered if people would stand up and go, that's not right. But instead, at the end of that talk, I had people lined up to talk to me at the happiness bar for about a half an hour or more, asking my opinion, asking me to kind of go deeper on what some of the things I talked about. And I realized that we all have something to share because not everybody is as far in the journey as you are. So whether you think you're an expert or not, you kind of are, right? So you have the opportunity to share with people who don't know as much as you do. And there are other people who are way beyond where you are that you can learn from as well. And we're all kind of in that spectrum of learning from one end to the other. And so I started organizing WordCamps and speaking at more WordCamps. And I decided that I wanted to have a regular income. And so I applied to work at GiveWP. And I took a full-time role at GiveWP, and I was with them for 7 years altogether, including when we got acquired by Liquid Web. And so I was with them from January of 2018 until February of this year when they did some layoffs, and suddenly found myself looking for other work and ways to fill my revenue streams.
And that was February of 2024?
25 this year.
25. Oh, that
yeah.
just happened. Okay.
Yeah, it was the day after I got back from WordCamp Asia. I woke up to a message saying, can you meet us on this link? And I joined the link, and there was HR and bosses and bosses' bosses. And I was like, I don't work here anymore. That was like a big adjustment in my life. But it hurt. I'm not going to lie. It hurt. I understand that companies have to make budgetary decisions and they have to decide which direction they're going in, and that it really wasn't anything personal. I didn't get fired. I'm eligible for rehire if I find a job I want to apply for over there. And they still like text me and like, hey, do you have the password for this account and things like that? Luckily I did for the last one. But yeah, so, I'm still friendly with everybody over there. It wasn't a personal decision, but it still hurts your heart a little bit when you suddenly are trying to figure out how, where the next paycheck is coming from. But now I've kind of moved into a freelance kind of situation because the job market's pretty tough right now. And I'm pretty niche in what I do in community. And most of the companies that have that position have it filled already. So I've been, freelancing, taking on some contracts here and there. And pretty excited about moving things forward. And I've got some things in store too. I've built some new websites with a couple of partners over the last couple of weeks. I have another 2 or 3 more sites that are going to be coming out in the next few months, all of which should have, most of which will have a revenue stream attached to them. And one that's just a pure gift to the community that just got released this week.
Congratulations. It sounds like you have tons of exciting stuff going on right now.
I do. It's very exciting.
Wow. And then in addition to these projects, you're also the ED of Post Status.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And what does that look like? What does that role look like for you?
Yeah, so that's mostly making sure that, things keep running there and that the community that we have on Slack there plays nice with one another. And if there's technical questions, I'm the first contact. And if people have press releases they want us to put out in a newsletter and things like that comes through me. Figuring out like somebody can't log into the site. How do I fix that for them? And so it's a little bit of the Jill of all trades over there, keeping things moving forward and engaging with people. I do podcasts over there as well. We do a live stream every Wednesday. We have a couple other podcasts that we do more sporadically, just making sure that we're bringing the people of WordPress out, just like you're doing here, right? Talking to people about their projects and what they're doing and how the community moves forward with one another.
Awesome. And then it was just January of this year of 2025 that Post Status was acquired. Is that timeline right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
About that?
Yeah. So back in I think it was 17, but I could be wrong, whatever dates it was, Brian Krogsgaard sold Post Status to Corey Miller. And so I had been working with Corey first as a writer and then kind of as his right-hand person over there and kind of running the show for him. And then he took on some investors. So Joost De Valk was one of those. And they asked me last year if I would be the executive director and be the face of Post Status. And I said, sure, And then this year, Corey sold the rest of it over to Joost De Valk. So Joost has turned it into a nonprofit. So it's a nonprofit in the Netherlands. And he has a board. We have a board that kind of keeps things in check. And then I am the employee. I have some other team members as well, so that when I do podcasts, I don't have to do all the editing. I have people that are working with me on the newsletter and the editing. So we have a small team over there of people. And of course, people's names are escaping me today. Nathan Ingram also does some writing for us as well. He has a couple columns that he does. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
For anyone listening who doesn't know, Joost De Valk is the co-founder of Yoast.
Correct. Yes. The SEO plugin.
The SEO plugin. And so how does the nonprofit status of Post Status change anything, if at all?
Yeah, so it's allowed us to put a smaller price tag on memberships. Membership was as high as $197 recently, and now it's $50 a year. And instead of looking for like 4 or 5 huge sponsors that are paying, $20,000, $25,000, we have sponsorships available now for $5,000. Smaller companies can invest and take advantage of sponsoring our newsletter and our podcasts and things like that over there as well. So it's allowed us to have a little bit of a different look at how it all works.
Excellent. I love that. And are there other ways in which this transition has influenced your vision for Post Status as the ED?
What I love about it is that Yoast has empowered me to do whatever I feel like doing with it, right? So if I want to start a podcast, if I want to have an event online, all of the things, I tell him I'm doing it or that I did it. And he's like, awesome, great, keep up the good work. So it's really nice because, yes, he's there and I can ask him questions and he's a sounding board for me, but I don't have to get his permission to do things because he's entrusted that in me. And I think that it's a great working relationship when somebody knows your strengths and is just like, go for it, do good stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so great. And then you've been involved in other community initiatives, like WPSpeakers is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so I built WPSpeakers a few years ago. The idea was that when you are trying to find even podcast guests, but especially as a meetup organizer, I was constantly looking, especially through the pandemic with everything online, for speakers to be able to speak to my group because I didn't think they wanted to hear me every month. And they're a quiet group. They don't really present to each other very often. And so I was constantly like, who could I get? And I'm a very well-connected person. And I thought, if I'm struggling to think who could I invite, certainly others are too. And so I started WPSpeakers with the ability for anybody who wants to speak in WordPress or does speak in WordPress to have a profile there. And anybody can search it. It's free to join. It's free to search it. It's not a moneymaker at all, other than a few sponsorships that I had come in. And it's great because you can look for people who they want to speak. So you don't have to be like, nervously tapping somebody on the shoulder to say, do you want to talk about this? You're so good at it. And have them go, oh no, I don't do public speaking, right? So these are people who are ready, willing, and available to do that. I literally just sold it to Post Status a few weeks ago. And the money that I made from that is funding my trip to WordCamp Europe. So I'm excited about that as well.
Fantastic. Oh, I love that.
And what's beautiful about it is I still get to manage it. I just have other people that now have to do the background work on it.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the dev also.
So for the past 3.5 or 4 years, I was a full-time contributor to the WordPress community team. And in that role, I was supporting WordPress meetup organizers all over the world and WordCamp organizers as well. And one of the most common things that I heard from meetup organizers when I asked them about their challenges was the effort required, exactly what you're saying, the effort required to find speakers on a monthly basis. And that really it does take effort, especially to find a speaker who wants to be there and is engaging. And so I'm just delighted about the WPSpeakers initiative. And it addresses a real need.
It does. And there's about 550 speakers in that database right now. So that's something that's really cool. I try to think of gaps in the WordPress community and ways to fill them, right? So that was a gap in the community that I don't think a lot of people had thought about. How could we even thought about it as a problem, much less how do we solve it? But I knew it was my problem and I wanted to solve it for me. And so in doing so, solved it for other people as well. I just launched this week with Marcus Burnett, SponsorMeWP.com. So people like me who are looking for a sponsorship for the time that we serve in the WordPress community can now have a profile in there. So if you go to SponsorMeWP.com, you can have a profile there. It also is free where you're not looking to monetize that at all. But that's a way for sponsors to find people to put their money into as part of the Five for the Future, or just because they want to contribute to the community. And maybe they don't have enough people on their team to be able to do that, but they want to give back somehow. And so instead of having to look for people who are doing that, why not have a database filled with those people?
That is fantastic. And I think many people listening, but not everyone knows that WordPress is open source software. And that means it's created by contributors.
Which are volunteers for the most part.
which are largely volunteers. And that 5 for the future, or 5% for the future, is an invitation for any company that materially benefits from WordPress to give back 5% of their employee time to
Yes.
contribute to the open source project.
Exactly.
Just sharing that context for
Yeah,
folks
I love
listening.
that. And then the other project I launched 2 weeks ago is speednetworkonline.com. So June Liu and I were talking about how hard it can be, especially as remote workers, or if you're working for yourself, to do networking with people and be able to say, this is what I do. How can I help you with your business? And so just like speed dating, it's a speed networking event. And we're going to be able to put people in Zoom rooms, breakout rooms, and 15 people will hold their rooms. The other 15 will cycle through those rooms over the course of 90 minutes. And then at the end of that, we will share all of everybody's contact information who attended with each other in a spreadsheet so that they don't have to worry about like quickly writing down notes and things like that. They'll be able to contact one another at the end of that. So our first one is June 26th, and then we'll be scheduling more thereafter.
That is so cool. So how do these ideas come to you, Michelle? How do you identify the gaps and then identify those solutions?
A lot of it is really selfish. It's like, I have a problem. How do I solve my problem? Other people must have this problem too. Therefore, if I have the problem and I can solve it for myself, I can share that resource with other people as well and solve it solve it for others. At least that's the goal, right? That's what I'm hoping to do.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You're so proactive. That's one of the terms that comes to mind. As an aside, I just have to ask, I see the instruments in your background. I see some guitars, maybe a ukulele, a trumpet.
There's some trumpets,
well?
and there's a flute that you can't see also.
And a flute.
My father passed away in 2022. I had learned to play the guitar on his guitar, which is the one that you see all the way on the end towards the closet. And it's broken. The neck is broken, but I still hung it on the wall. So when he passed, I took his guitars. He had 4 of them. One's a child's one is what you see. And I thought they would be really nice background. Those are the trumpets that I and he also played in the high school. And the flute is my mom's. But it's kind of nice to have that there. And my joke is, and if you've ever been on a call with a developer, my joke is, if I have guitars in the background, does that make me a developer? Because it seems like all developers have a guitar in the background of their Zoom calls.
It's just so funny you say this because directly in front of me is a wall with a ukulele, a very beautiful wooden ukulele just hanging there. It's mirrors the child's guitar that's behind you. So I'm looking at your guitars on the wall and just on the other side of my camera, my ukulele.
I love it. Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
And then the photography is my photography. I'm a photographer at heart, and I love to go out and take nature photos. So I put a grid on the wall because it seemed like a nice backdrop for our Zoom videos.
They almost remind me of album covers, in that they're square. And, really beautiful.
Mixed tiles. Super easy to do.
And you're known for sending out personal postcards as well. Is that?
I do. I do probably anywhere from 15 to 30 postcards a month. When I feel like I'm going to time to do some writing, I just put it out there on social media that if anybody wants a postcard from me, and people do. People love to get mail that isn't a bill or junk mail. And so I send out a bunch of postcards every month. And just with this, I mean, I can't write a lot. It's just a postcard, right? Which is why I don't say I'll send you a letter, because I don't have that kind of time. But even if they're people I don't know, I can give them a word of positivity. And getting mail that's a fun postcard with cats or plants. And I probably got 100 different postcards. I buy them all the time. I even have a little box with a lid, and inside it is like a tray, and it's got all my pens and my stamps, and underneath that are all the postcards, so I can carry it with me wherever I want to go, sit and write, and just write out a bunch of postcards, drop them in the mail. And then people tend to either text me or message me on different socials. I got your postcard, and some people just take a picture and post it on social, like, look what I got from Michelle, and it warms my heart that it means things to other people as well. And then sometimes people send me one back. I got one back yesterday. A girl from my doctoral program is in Connecticut, and I had sent her one, and so she sent me a postcard this week as well, which was really cute.
Wow! And where do you get your postcards?
Amazon.
Yeah.
I just look for things that are pretty and that I like, and I buy them.
Yeah, and same for stamps. Well, obviously not Amazon, but you find stamps that you think are beautiful and.
Well, not so much. I just go buy a roll of stamps at the post office.
Okay. I have a whole stamp collection, and I really love sending mail also. So I think you've got a letter from me coming in the future, and maybe I have a postcard from you coming in the future. But especially it's the envelope that really does it for me. So I love addressing the envelope in calligraphy and then choosing.
Oh, nice!
I have a collection of old stamps that I'm not precious about.
Oh yeah.
I collect them so that I can then use them and send
Mm-hmm.
them to friends and create
Oh,
beautiful
I love
envelopes.
that.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
stamps I ever bought with the purpose of buying them specifically was a sheet of Wonder Woman stamps, because I'm a Wonder Woman collector, and I've never used them. They are framed and they hang in my Wonder Woman room, which is my ensuite bathroom. But we don't have to tell people that
Wow. That's so cool. You have a whole Wonder Woman room. Oh my gosh.
part.
Wow.
She's fun.
That's so cool. So you have attended a ton of WordCamps around the world.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
attended so many.
Closing in on 80, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All over the place.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your favorite memories or experiences from WordCamp?
So every WordCamp has something fun about it, right? There weren't any that I went like, oh, I wish I'd never gone to that, right? But for me, what it is meeting people, whether they're old friends that I get to hug that I haven't seen in a while, or, salute, because not everybody's a hugger, and I respect that, but I am a hugger, so feel free to hug me anytime you see me. But it's the people, right? It really is the people and meeting the people. And I love swag, so it's always also the swag. Swag is always fun. I love little trinkety things. I've got them all over my house. If you've given me something, I've got a whole collection of. Nobody should own as many mugs as I do, but I have a collection of mugs. But it really is the people. I will go to talks, of course, and learn things from people. That's where I've learned some amazing things about WordPress over the years. But it's sitting down and having conversations with people, learning who they are, learning what their needs are, learning where their pain points are, because that's how we solve problems, is learning where people's pain points are.
Absolutely.
Things like, with things like WPSpeakers and Sponsor Me WP. So those are the kinds of things. And it's funny, you put something out there, and it's like, until I needed sponsorship, I never even thought to do that. And then I just like, hey, let's do this, right? And then you see other people saying, this is an amazing initiative. I'm so glad we need to have this. And nothing, Aruba Ahmed has something on GitHub for that. But if you're not a GitHub person, like I'm not, right? I mean, yeah, I have a GitHub account because I have to, but I'm not a developer, so I'm not using it regularly, and it's not something that is easy for a lot of people, like marketers, for example, to just go, I think I'm going to join that GitHub. And so this is something that's much more public and a much more public space where anybody who's working in WordPress can have a profile. So it's nice that you can solve problems. Yeah.
Yes. And let's see, I think a lot about the value of knowing somebody in person, and something that's incredible about our community, the WordPress community, is that we don't need to meet in person in order to work together. It's a distributed community of people all over the world who work together asynchronously in all different time zones, and sometimes synchronously at the same time. But there is some element that I find around meeting someone in person, meeting them just for the first time, someone I've worked with over Slack for months or years, and then that first face-to-face meeting, it really transforms the relationship. It's like alchemy.
And it really is.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. And that's even our mastermind group that we had going for a while.
Yeah.
That arose out of WordCamp Asia last year in Taiwan.
Yeah, that was a good camp.
It was a great camp. And and then we created this mastermind group. And I was recently talking with Raquel, actually in the previous episode of Cosmos. And she shared that it was in part through our mastermind group that she got the idea to organize PressConf, which really
that was a good event.
My heart. Yeah. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there. It was a fantastic event. Yeah.
What were some highlights for you? What made it fantastic?
It was, I have a notebook full of ideas that I generated, like things like some of the things that are coming up that I haven't released yet. Like I've got a site that I'm going to be launching that is me reviewing plugins and things like that I can monetize, right? And that kind of thing. That came from there. Ideas of things that I want to do with WordPress itself, and conversations I had with Mary Hubbard, and be able to move forward on some of those things. Some of my contract work that I'm doing right now with Automatic came from conversations at that event. And so it was amazing to me learning from people, hearing the things that they were talking about, but also it just was for me this just brainstorm of things that were happening, and ideas of things that I could use, not just for monetization, of course, but of course that's, when you're not working full time and most of the work you're doing is unpaid work, it's like, how can I monetize some of this? So yes, a lot of it was around that idea too. Another thing I'm going to be launching in July is a small group I'm looking for the right terminology still. That's why it hasn't been marketed yet. But basically, a 5-month intensive workshop course in person every week with plugin developers who don't have a marketing team and can't afford to hire a marketing team, to walk them through 5 months of how to start marketing their plugin and find a little more following and success that way. And so that came out of a lot of conversations with people. And as I was sitting there one day at PressConf, in a talk that was way over my head because it was about like crypto and those kinds and blockchain. And I was like, whew, I sat there and I wrote up a lot of the text that's going to go on that page on my website. So those are the kinds of things that happened for me at PressConf, and just having conversations and meals with people and being able to get to know people either for the first time or a little bit more deeply without me having any responsibilities. So I wasn't an organizer, I wasn't a speaker. I just got to attend and really take in and meet and network. It was phenomenal.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. And this 5-week, did you say 5-week program?
5 month.
Plugin developers? 5 month. Okay. Yes. 5-month program for plugin developers. That's a fantastic idea. That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it'll be a little bit like a mastermind in that we all come together every week, but it's going to have instruction and homework associated with it, because you can't really, otherwise I could just give you a punch list and you wouldn't know how to do the work, right? But the idea is that we'll talk through things, we'll workshop some of it together, and others of it you'll come back next week and we'll talk about it.
So given where we are in this moment in the world, I really want to ask you, how do you use AI in your life right now?
I'm getting better at remembering that it exists, because I'm so used to, I'm older, right? So I'll be 57 in October. I should just say I'm 56. It sounds younger, but I forget. I'm so used to creating and having to create on my own that sometimes I forget it's a tool. I'm going to be honest. So I'm getting better at leaning into it as a resource for things like idea generation. Like, I don't ever want it to write for me because I love my writing style. Other people love my writing style. And when I write, it's authentically me. And so, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to write an article that are 10 things for XYZ, and I can only think of 8. So I'll be like, hey, ChatGPT, what are 10 things for XYZ? And it'll give me some more ideas like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's a good one to include. And then I'll include that in my writing. But also, I've been using it for image generation a lot lately. Like, I wrote an article for Post Status about building a casserole career. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And at the end of the day, you've got your lifestyle, right? And your livelihood. And I was like, I need a picture of a casserole. But I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to look like it just came off the cover of some food magazine. So I had it create like a graphic of a casserole, and I was like, no, that one looks too boring. Like, okay, add this, and it iterated it for me until I got it, and then I was able to tell it I wanted it to be 1280 by 1230 by 680 or whatever it was, 1280 by 630, and it created exactly the image that I needed for the featured image to be able to put on there. So I'm learning to use it as a tool.
Yeah, and
I actually added it to my phone now. It was ChatGPT. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My pleasure.
And I'm just interested, as I continue to ask this question of people over a period of only months, I have a feeling the answers will change dramatically just as
I'm sure
technology accelerates. Yeah. Yeah. In
for
ways
sure,
that are a little like really empowering and also kind of creepy, which we don't need to get into right now. We can, but we don't have to. But
there's still a lot of uncanny valley out there when it comes to using AI.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
But I think back to this video on the singularity by Ray Kurzweil that I watched probably a decade ago now. And at the time it seemed so, well, first of all, it's a very goofy, outdated video, but really intriguing. And yeah, I recommend it. I do recommend it. It's about when a network of computers becomes smarter than, one computer becomes smarter than a human, and then a network of computers becomes smarter than all of humankind. And yeah, just really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I like to say, like, I interviewed somebody this week who has AI now that can help you make changes to a website, like client changes. Rooney is what it was called. I said, if somebody, of course, this is my little joke. I said, if somebody emails you through the system and says, can you make the logo bigger? Do you have like I'm sorry, Hal, I can't do that. Or I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. From 2001 kind of thing, a little joke back to them. He's like, well, we're not quite that snarky, but close the pod door of it.
Wow. So what else is interesting you these days? What it doesn't have to be work related, but just what it can
Yeah.
be, but where is your mind at right now?
Yeah, so it's almost summertime here. It's still cold, actually. I see you're in a tank top and I still have my heat on because I live in Rochester, New York, and it hasn't decided to be winter yet or summer yet, much less spring. But I love getting out with my cameras in nature and doing nature photography. So that's something that I'm really interested in. But the other thing is I'm actually writing a novel right now. I'm 3 chapters in. I've got most of the research done. A family friend, his parents met during World War II in a very interesting way. And I asked the family if I could write their story in a fictionalized version. And so I've had meetings with the family, learned about the bottom line is his mother stowed away on his father's Navy ship, on Army ship on the way back to the US after the war was done. And I found articles about her on Stars and Stripe from 1945 and all of these great things. So I'm writing a novel right now that has nothing to do with WordPress, nothing to do with work. It's just kind of a from the heart. I've always wanted to write as a bucket list item, right? Being the Great American Novel kind of thing. And so the working title is G.I. Joe and the Stowaway Bride, although I don't think that'll be what the final final is. But I'm enjoying writing it, and when I'm able to share chapters with the family, they respond with tears. They are very excited, even though it's like may or may not be what actually happened in their parents' life. It follows the information that they've given me, and they're very excited about it too. So
That is amazing. Where was this woman stowing away from?
yeah, so she and he had been injured in the war and was recovering in London. She was waitressing in London at the time during World War II. And when he recovered, instead of sending him back or sending him back to the front, they put him to work as a mailman for the army in their London offices. And he went to eat where she was working, and they just really hit it off. And he, gave her a ring. They were going to be married, and the war ended, and he got his shipping orders to come back to the United States. And unbeknownst to him, because she didn't want to get him in trouble, she actually shimmied up the mooring ropes and stowed away on the ship for 2 days before she was found. And he was almost court-martialed until they believed that he didn't know that she was actually there. And so when they landed in New York, when they boarded in New York, they put her on a boat over to Ellis Island. And he called his mom because he couldn't go, because he had orders. And his mom had to go sign for her on Ellis Island for her to be able to come into the United States. And so it's the story of how they met, how she ended up stowed away, and that whole process. And I have a 32-page letter she wrote to her sister back in the UK about her journey here that I can draw from. And then how they raised a family of 4, and they were married for 50 years until she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Is that a little cat paw that just
That
reached out
was,
to you?
yeah. My cat Stella.
So cute.
My desk is in a corner, and her cat bed is behind there. She's her safe space, so she's constantly coming and going around my computer.
Makes me very happy.
Yeah.
And going back to the novel, yes, that is so cool. And
It's a cool story.
you? What surprised you in the process of writing a novel?
Yeah, so I don't know what I don't know, right? So I've been doing a lot of research. Like when I talk about his dad always said his mother reminded him of a movie star, and she always wanted to look like a movie star. And so, like when I talked about things like she had I made up a lot of this, right? Collect pictures out of magazines. I have ideas of who the starlets were in the late 30s, early 40s, but I still had to make sure that I wasn't talking about somebody that literally hadn't had a movie done until the 50s or something. So doing some of that research, checking on what stores, like I talk about him growing up in Brooklyn, and where might he have eaten? Did Woolworths have a counter in the late 30s, early 40s? Can I talk about him seeing a magazine at the Woolworth, or that kind of thing? And what stores would I need to change that to? Those kinds of things. Like what kinds of radios were they listening on? Did they have televisions? Most people didn't at that point in time. So a lot of that research has just been kind of eye-opening. And instead of just researching by Googling everything, I'm watching old movies and reading some old stories from the time period, because I assume that those people have done some of their research as well. And it's just kind of ideas and fodder for talking about when he was fighting in the war and things like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
Thanks for sharing about this. I can't wait to read it when it's published.
I'll definitely give you a copy for sure. I'll sign it.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. So what sort of movies can you share any titles of movies or books that you've read as part of your research?
Yeah, so I've been reading Lilac Girls. I also read, I'm trying to remember now, anything. Sarah's Key was another one. There's a bunch of like those, they're romantic, but they're not romance novels, but that idea of the romanticizing and things like that. But also the horrors that happened during World War II. And then I just watched a movie called Brooklyn, which takes place afterwards, but gave me some ideas too. And I can't remember the other movie I just watched the other day, but yeah, I've been just like going on to Netflix and typing in World War II and like just watching whatever kind of comes up to get some ideas and things like that. Some of the things that I had in my head were actually World War I things, and so I had to adjust. I'm like, oh no, that's the wrong war. That's not what they would have worn, So things like that.
Wow.
A lot of fun.
My mind is blown, Michelle, because you are the ED of Post Status. You have all of these awesome projects that you think of and then enact to address gaps that you see in the WordPress landscape. And you have a number of what sound to me like really interesting contracts. And you are writing a historical novel, mailing up to 30 postcards or maybe sometimes more a month. It's so awesome.
I hired an accountability coach. I will be honest about that. And every 2 weeks we meet and talk about the novel and other things that are happening in my life to keep me on track so that I don't just like forget to keep working forward. It was a good investment of my money in order to be able to make sure that I stay on track with some things. And that was before I got laid off. So she and I adjusted a little bit because emotions and fear and all of those things that happened around that time pushed my timeline further, but also recognizing that it's my timeline. There's no deadline by which I have to hit publish on a book, but I also want to keep it moving forward with a good momentum. So she and I meet every 2 weeks on Zoom, and she keeps me moving forward. She's also a really good cheerleader.
Yes. Yeah. Which is part of accountability, is having a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how are you going to reward yourself for hitting that mark, Michelle? That's what she'll ask me sometimes.
And how do you answer?
Sometimes it's a nap. Like I'm going to schedule a nap. Sometimes it's going out for ice cream or taking a Saturday to go out and do photography when I would when I'm not feeling motivated to do it, because once I actually get out and do those things, I'm very, very happy. Yeah. So she helps me remind me of the things that I can reward myself with as well.
What are some other components of accountability coaching, or in your experience of it?
Mm-hmm. So it was like the onboarding was the part that I think was almost the most eye-opening, because she asked questions I hadn't thought to ask of myself. And so, why am I wanting to do these things? What do I see as my stumbling blocks? Why have I started projects in the past that I haven't finished? What could I have done differently to do those things? How do I feel when I don't complete a project? How do I feel when I complete a project? And how do I feel when I complete the steps? So we have these little things like taking a nap for finishing a chapter. But when I get halfway through, I'm going to rent an Airbnb and go out and do photography, like bigger things, and Legos. Buying Legos is always something that could be a reward for myself as well.
Oh, what's your most recent Lego set?
The most recent one I did was I built the small cat. I had built the large cat a few weeks back, and I built the small cat, which was super cute last weekend.
Are these Lego flowers that I see in your background?
They are, yeah. There's actually more that aren't in the shot, but I love them because they're, forever fresh.
Yes. I have a giant bin of Legos in my mom's basement in New Hampshire.
Fun. Yeah.
I pull them out whenever my friends come to visit with their kids, but
yeah,
I really want to just pull them out on my own at some point. I had
giant
pirate ship and a kind of a jungle landscape, and I just used to play with Legos for hours. And I really love that Legos increasingly have the adult focus sets.
Yeah, the hardest one I've done recently, and it's not that Legos are difficult. Let's face it; they give you the instructions page by page by page. But the most intricate one that I've done recently was Van Gogh's Starry Night. And so I have that. It was really cool. And the cat took a couple days as well. Yeah, just some fun stuff. But Everybody is Awesome one is one of my favorites. The rainbow people from
I don't know that.
The Lego movie. Yeah, it's a rainbow that kind of comes down onto a floor, and there's different colored people, of the different rainbow colored people on each step. And they kind of like angle backwards, and it just reminds you that we're all people, and it's to me, I mean, I do a lot of work with DEIB, and so like the Everybody is Awesome set just made sense for me to have for sure.
Diversity,
and that's in my living room also.
Inclusion, diversity,
and belonging.
equity, inclusion, and belonging. to define DEIB. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
so
is the Lego movie worth checking out? I haven't seen it.
I haven't watched it. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I just know that that's what the set is from. Is what people tell me. Oh, that's from the Lego movie. I'm like, okay.
Well, now I want to watch the movie.
I know I should too, probably. I have to finish watching all my World War IIs first.
Yeah, exactly. Are you able to share about any of the contracts that you have right now, or the other projects you're working on?
So I have I have 2 contracts with Automatic right now. One contract is to be the influencer on TikTok. And so I've been filming TikToks. We launched this week. The very first one that I did was me welcoming you as though I were the flight attendant on an airline to your WordPress dashboard. And so that was kind of a fun one to do. And then I've filmed so many this week because I'm going to be out of town next week. And so if you follow WordPress on TikTok, you will see me and you'll see Darian and some other people as well. But you'll see me doing a lot of really fun and goofy things. And I'm just having a blast with it. My other contract with Automatic is I am the influencer wrangler for .com. That just started this week. So I'm still learning what that all means. But I'm working with Stacey Carlson and having a blast doing that also. And then I'm through this week, I have a contract with a local pastor who also wrote a book on intelligence and reality and why people act the way that they do. And he has a course, he has the book, several books actually, and then he also has speaking engagements. And so is hiring me to contract with him to help increase his speaking engagements and also sales of his course and his books. And because I can't do everything, I brought on June Liu, who is an amazing marketer also. And she and I are taking that contract together so that I can stay accountable because she's going to be helping me do the work as well. So those are my 3 big contracts right now. Yeah. And then just all the other little things that I do.
Yeah. And so the first thing you described, the TikTok videos for Automatic, is that for WordPress.org?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't use TikTok. Is there another way that I can see those videos?
I can send you some links. Yeah, there are public links that you can open and see on a browser.
Okay. I'm one of those, I don't know, millennials or, I am a millennial, but I'm one of those, that segment of millennials who doesn't use TikTok, and I watch my TikTok videos on YouTube or Instagram, which is it's silly, but it's just how it goes.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see them. That sounds really fun.
It is fun, and writing them, and we're doing trends. It's not even. I thought at first they were going to have me doing things like, and this is how you do this in WordPress, which would have been really boring. But instead, we're having so much fun with it. It's just a blast.
That's what TikTok's all about. Is having fun with it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
How did that contract come about?
So I don't know who originally thought of me, but I got a text message from Bree McDeedy, and she said, hey, I'm wondering if you might be interested in being an influencer for WordPress. And they weren't even sure where they were going to put me yet because they hadn't finally hammered down like who the channel was going to be for. And then I had a meeting with her and Darian Lusk, and we started to move that project forward. Doc Pop is also doing videos for them. And so the 4 of us met, and I signed a contract. I got a contract in email, signed the contract for 3 months, and we are producing some pretty fun stuff. There's a trend right now I can't remember exactly what it's called. Let me see if I don't have it right now on TikTok, which is about like, I wasn't born to be bougie, or, I was born to do better things or something. And I'm self-funding my way to WordCamp Europe. And so because I've broken my tailbone this year and because I'm a plus size person, I upgraded myself to first class. And so I'm going to do a video there with the sound behind it that's like, yeah, I was born to do better things. And and that's going to be on there too. And some videos from WordCamp Europe and in Basel and things like that I'll be doing next week, and talking to people and interviewing people while I'm there and getting all kinds of content for the channel.
Excellent. And what's the goal of the WordPress.org TikTok channel?
I think the goal is engagement for sure. We know that a lot of the competitors to WordPress are doing social media like that, and we haven't. Typically, we've stuck to Twitter and things like that, but they're doing the gamut of social media across all the different platforms: Instagram, YouTube, Mastodon, like all of the different places. And so finding people to fit into those niches and just have a presence, just branding wise, right? So especially for .org, there is no ROI really because it's free open source software, but to just be engaging and thinking of, it's funny because we talked about like how Duolingo was like killing it. They were just crushing it. And now Duolingo has taken down every single one of their TikToks because they got in some hot water with the fact that they were using AI for so much of the generation for their app. in a way that people were not happy about. So Duolingo's not a thing on TikTok anymore. But over the past few months, like everybody was engaging with them, and now not so much. So, but if you can hit that right stride and not piss people off,
right.
Excuse me, irritate people.
That's okay. That's okay. So I have two thoughts here. One is I loved Duolingo's social media presence. And again, I didn't watch it on TikTok, but I know they were, I watched them on Instagram, but I know they were TikTok videos. And that it was just a human in a giant owl suit. So it was a giant owl being like so weird and goofy and kind of having nothing to do with language learning. And
exactly.
It was brand building, and it was fun and whimsical and just straight up weird in a way that kept me engaged. And so I'm disappointed to know that they stopped that.
I'm sure they'll figure it out.
And then the second thing that comes to mind to me as you're sharing this is the importance of WordPress, the open source software, reaching the next generation of users.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that Squarespace does that really well, and other closed proprietary platforms do that really well. And WordPress, I think, historically in recent years has kind of struggled to reach that younger audience. And TikTok
I agree.
is one of the ways to get in front of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, are you sure you want the 56-year-old doing it? But we're having fun with it. And I think it's going to start to get, we literally just launched it this week. So it's going to grow. But we have over 500 followers as of yesterday, which I think is pretty awesome in less than a week's time. So I think it's going to build. And if anybody's listening and they want to check it out, you can tell me how silly I look or tell me how awesome you think it was. I'll take either. It's fine.
Cool. So that's on TikTok at WordPress?
WordPress, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question now, Michelle, that I ask every Cosmos guest, and that is, who should we invite to the Cosmos podcast next? And please share one question that you want us to ask them when they're here.
Okay, great. So I absolutely adore Mark Westgard. He is one of my WordPress besties. I have a few WordPress besties, if I'm being honest. He is one of my WordPress besties. Mark Westgard is the founder and developer behind WS Form. And what he has been able to do as a sole person working at WS Form is phenomenal. The product it literally is amazing, and it has changed the way that I do a lot of work in WordPress. And just for that reason alone, he'd be good to have on there. But that he's very innovative, the way he's used AI, the way he's made it. There's just so much you'll hear from him about it. But he's built an amazing product and contributed to the community a lot through sponsorships and things like that. Like sponsoring WordCamp Europe, for example. And I think you should ask him about how he manages to balance the amount of development that he does, because he's constantly releasing add-ons and upgrades and things to WS Form, but also he's answering the majority of the support tickets as well. And so every day he's balancing that. Well, and he has a wife and 2 children. So and he's engaged with his family as well and his friends. And so I'm worried the answer is that he doesn't sleep, but somehow he manages to make it all work and contribute to the community, be a positive friend and family member, and put out this amazing product as well.
All right. Oh, I can't wait to meet and talk with Mark. So thank you for that recommendation. That's
fantastic. You're welcome. I'll send you his contact information.
Great. And I'm also curious, you said that WS Form has changed how you use WordPress?
It has, because I have been able to not only have just a basic form on a site, but because he's a bestie and he gives me a license, I've actually blogged on his site, and I like to look at things and see, well, this is how you use it. How else could this thing be used? Because let's face it, I said to him, forms aren't sexy. There's nothing sexy about forms, right? It's hard to sell a form. It's hard to sell software in general, because it's just it's the thing that makes other things look good, right? So I said, do you remember Mad Libs growing up? And it's like, tell me a verb, tell me a thing. So if you go to WS Form and you search Mad Libs, I built, using his form, a Mad Lib where you just fill in all these things, and then it flips over when you do it, and it produces for you to read about WordCamp blank and your involvement in WordCamp blank based on all of the inputs on WS Form. So you can see Mad Libs just based on a form. And if you can look at a project and something like different softwares to be able to do those kinds of things, you can think of fun ways that you can use it as well. So instead of having different softwares for different things, I'm using it for payment gateways right now. So on speed networking, or speednetworkonline.com. If you register for that, it's $20 to participate. Your payment gets processed through Stripe, through WS Form. And we have all the information we need, fills it into a spreadsheet. Like, it's just made my life so much easier.
So cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I totally love it. And then, Michelle, where can folks find you online?
I have 2 websites, but the one that will get you all of the information is meetmichelle.online. It's a lot easier than trying to go to michellefrechette.com and remembering how to spell Frechette.
Awesome. Michelle, it is such a delight to get to talk with you. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Really makes my day and
Yay.
It's great.
Well, I look forward to seeing you, hopefully for that in-person hug before too long.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, E2M, for sponsoring the Cosmos by WPLift podcast. And talk to you soon, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah.